Chapter 2, The Battle. All the training and the long nights of practicing martial arts were about to pay off. Let the battle begin. The first man in uniform came around the corner and charged toward me. At the same time, another man closed in on Mike. We were back to back, each facing an enemy. Both of our eyes glowed brightly, petrified, but with no time to think, I felt the adrenaline flow through me. I threw both of my hands forward, using all my force to push the energy at the man. It hit him in the chest, and he flew backward through the air. He slammed into the man behind him, causing their heads to collide. Both fell unconscious. Another soldier came from behind me and wrapped his arms around my body. I used my defensive martial arts skills to stomp my foot into his. This caused him to release his grip just enough for me to swing my fist down into his groin. As he was hunched over and moaning in agony, I spun around and jumped, kicking him in the face. This sent him backward, landing hard on his back, knocking the wind out of him. Wow, that felt good. Over to my right, Mike fought two men. He seemed to be holding his own. 3 soldiers were already lying unconscious on the ground. I was impressed. His combat skills looked like a scene from an action movie. I tried to catch my breath and slow my heart rate down while I watched Mike, staring at his amazing athletic frame as he swung his fist at one man and then blocked a punch from another. One of the men advanced while Mike lifted his own leg and forcefully kicked through the man's chest. Mesmerized by my husband's physique, I stumbled as someone hit me from behind, knocking me to the ground. My arms hit the hard concrete, causing a shooting pain to rip through my body. I hadn't even heard the guy, let alone seen him. A tall, heavy, aggressive soldier had pinned me down and was trying to grasp my wrist to handcuff them, but I kept squirming. "Hold still," he demanded. "Get off me," I shouted. I continued to wiggle while he commanded me to hold still, trying to look for something, anything to help me at this point. Off in the distance, I saw a pile of tools on a wooden crate. I twisted and pulled as hard as I could until one of my hands was free enough to use my energy. The tool flew across the shipyard and into my hand. Once I had a firm grip on this tool, I flipped over and swung the heavy piece of metal at the head of the man pinning me down. It knocked him out cold, and he fell on top of me. That was a bad idea. I could barely breathe. His 200 pounds of dead weight on my chest was extremely heavy. Mike noticed me struggling. He rushed over, yanked the unconscious man off, and pulled me up. "Amber, we have to go," Mike urged. My body felt drained, as if I'd run a 5K. Pushing our powers to their limits could be tiresome. We discovered that using our gifts at great strengths depleted the energy in our bodies temporarily. Either resting or soaking up the sun or water would help me bounce back fast, but there was no time for any. I scanned the shipyard and could see a few of the men slowly regaining consciousness. Mike took my hand. We ran toward the entrance as hard as our bodies would let us. Our minivan was at the convenience store where this all started before we'd hidden in the shipyard. I glanced back over my shoulder to see 3 soldiers chasing after us, guns in their hands and anger written all over their faces, with their eyebrows pointing downward. As we stormed down the narrow rows of stacked cargo containers, Mike stopped. He turned around to face the soldiers. "Mike, what are you doing?" I shouted. Just to our right were heavy cargo containers stacked 3 high. He gestured toward them. Is he doing what I think he's doing? With what little strength he had left, Mike attempted to use his telekinetic powers to pull the containers down. They began shaking, but I could see he was struggling. At this point, I was exhausted, but I wasn't letting him do this alone. I raised my right hand to help move my energy, and with my left hand, I grabbed his right hand. Our eyes glowed fires of flames and crystals of ice, using everything we had, concentrating as if our lives depended on this, exhausting my body to the point of every joint aching and a sharp knife stabbing pain. Suddenly, after a few seconds that felt like hours, the containers crashed down into the other side of the wall of the containers, causing the men to come to a sudden halt. "This should buy us some time," Mike gasped as our eyes returned to normal. "Maybe the lady called the cops," I said. "Let's hurry back to the store." Both of us were fatigued, but we needed to keep moving. We ran out of the shipyard entrance and continued toward the van. I glanced back to see the men coming around the right side of the row. They aren't giving up, Mike said, his breathing loud and heavy. We were almost there. My joints hated me right now for all this running and pressing my abilities to their extreme. I could hear his thoughts. Come on, Amber, push through it. He was right. I had to keep pushing through the pain. The front of the store had shattered glass everywhere from the attack. Somehow, not a single cop was here. The lady cashier must have been dead, and everyone, including the cops, must have been at the huge race happening at the International Speedway this week. Get to the van, he shouted. But instead of Mike following me toward the van, he sprinted to the front of the store where all the broken glass lay. He reached down for something on the ground. It was the bottle of water that we dropped earlier when they'd first attacked. Then he hustled to the driver's side of the van. I jumped to the passenger side, and Mike opened the driver's door. Bang! They fired a gun. Ah! Mike screamed. He held his right arm in agony. Mike! I shouted. They shot him in the upper part of his arm, blood filled in his gray t-shirt. He tossed the water at me. I'm fine, he claimed. Drink this. We have to go. Mike climbed in and shuts the door, continuing to hold his arm in pain. Don't tell me you're fine, I barked. You're bleeding. Let me drive. I took one step out of the passenger side and heard another shot. No time to switch sides. I stepped back in and slammed my door. He would have to drive with the wound. My eyes widened. Go! It is a good thing this van isn't at stick shift, Mike pointed out as he pulled out his keys. I grabbed them and started the van while he snapped in his seatbelt. He reversed out of the parking spot, put it in drive, and slammed the gas as our tires spun on the stones. I snapped the seatbelt and glanced in the side mirror as we pulled away. The same three men jumped into the black SUV parked on the other side of the lot. Mike increased his speed, zipping straight through stop signs. The SUV followed us at a distance, trying to catch up. Mike's arm was bleeding pretty bad, but I couldn't heal him. I need to harvest the energy with my healing ability while he sat completely still. We need to find a place to hide before he bled out. In the meantime, I had to slow the bleeding. I released my seatbelt and reached behind my seat to find something. My sweatshirt was laying on the seat. I began applying pressure to the wound. Mike swerved to the left, and my body was thrown to the passenger door. This wasn't going to work. I made a second attempt to stop the bleeding. This time, I wrapped the sweatshirt around his arm and pulled it tight. Ouch, he bellowed. Sorry. I held onto the door as he swerved in and out of traffic, honking his horn, driving well past the speed limit. How is it that not a single cop is following us? Move, people, he shouted. I drank the bottled water to replenish lost energy from the battle. I gave Mike the rest to drink while holding the wheel for him. He tossed the empty bottle to the back. In the side mirror, they seemed to be closing the distance between us fast. Our minivan wasn't exactly ideal for a car chase, but it had some horsepower since it was a brand new Honda Odyssey. Gunfire cracked our back window. Someone must have called the cops by now. Mike hit the gas pedal harder, increasing the speed. Get my gun, Mike said. It's in my black bag in the back. Don't use any abilities. Someone could see. I agreed with him. He entered the highway, and cars were everywhere. At the risk of exposing our abilities, the only option I had was to shoot back. I quickly climbed behind the seats to the back of the van and dug through his bag. Found it, I yelled up to Mike. Shoot them, Mike commanded. We'll never lose them in this minivan. It won't go fast enough. Right, no pressure, I mumbled. We'd spent weekends at the shooting range, but I never thought I would have to shoot someone to survive, let alone a moving target. You know, if we had a blue Camaro, we would have lost them by now, Mike said. The blue Camaro 3rd Gen was our dream car. It was something we wanted for a while, but we ended up settling for the minivan. We had hoped to expand our family with adoption. Our van swerved abruptly to the right as I fell over. Sorry, he said telepathically. You aren't going to make this easy, I mumbled as I pulled myself up. You got this, Amber. Shoot those sons of a bitches. Just keep us alive, and you can thank me later when I save our asses. With the back row seating of the van stored away, I could lay low from the shots coming from the back window. The window was cracked, but I couldn't shoot through it. Searching around the van to find something strong enough to break the window. I found a tire iron in the sidewall. Perfect. I gripped the iron firmly with both hands and swung with all my might. The window shattered, glass flying in every direction. My legs bled from the broken glass, but I could heal that later. Laying on the seat was Mike's jacket. I threw it over the edge of the window to avoid the glass from cutting my wrists. I crouched down below the window line, gripping the gun in my right hand. I cocked the hammer with my left hand since the magazine was already full. The shooting pain in my knees continued to reverberate through my body. My hands felt clammy from my nerves. Adrenaline rushed through me. Suddenly, I froze, doubting if I could do this. Fear began to hit, and I felt my heart beating faster than it had ever. This uncomfortable feeling was worse than heartburn. Mike tapped into my thoughts. Control the fear before it controls you. I believe in you. His encouraging words were exactly what I needed. Today wasn't the day we died. Today was the day we lived to tell this chaotic story. Okay, I thought I was ready. Deep breath in and exhale out. I sat up and aimed the Glock 19 at the black SUV, trying to keep my arms steady, but the movements of the vehicle made it very difficult. As Mike flew through traffic, I pulled the trigger. 1, 2, 3. The sound was extremely loud. Each shot felt like a pop in my ears. I missed him completely. No idea where the bullets went. This wasn't working. My hands couldn't keep steady enough, and we needed to be closer. What if I hit one of the other vehicles? So many innocent people were driving on the highway. The man on the passenger side fired his gun, hitting the back trunk door as I ducked down. Think, Amber, think. How was I going to do this? Did I keep shooting at the risk of hitting an innocent car full of people, or use my powers to control my aim? My only option was to use my telekinetic ability to help control the bullet's aim. Maybe I could hit the driver in the shoulder enough for him to stop. I grabbed the gun with both hands, palms still clammy, making it hard to grip. The burning grew hotter in my eyes. Warm energy flowed through my body. Mike peered into the rearview mirror. Amber, what are you doing? I ignored Mike's question and flipped around, gun aimed at his shoulder. We locked eyes, and the driver had a terrified expression as if he knew what was about to come, and there was nothing he could do. I squeezed the trigger, but was thrown to the side. Sorry, Amber, Mike muttered. I'm feeling slightly dizzy. Mike must have been feeling the effects of the blood loss. I quickly sat up to see. Oh no, the fourth shot missed the man's shoulder. The bullet went straight into his head, instantly killing him. Blood exploded all over the seat. His body went limp, and the SUV swerved to the left. It hit the barrier, causing the vehicle to flip over and land on its top side. All the vehicles behind them came to a halt. I faintly saw cop lights approaching the wreck. I stared at the SUV growing smaller and smaller as we drove away. What did I do?